Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we have from Aesop Rock, Black Hole Superette. There are a lot of places to start when talking about Aesop Rock these days, not the least being the remarkable hot streak he's been on since Spirit World Field Guide in 2020, where it seemed like the surrealism of the modern world started catching up with his own overgrown, immensely detailed imagery and storytelling, to say nothing of his own work on the production boards, which was only developing more complex layers and a weird, shambling twist. Now this followed into the underrated Garbology in 2021, but really reached ahead with integrated tech solutions in 2023. One of the best rap albums of a pretty stacked year, and folks were now saying this was even better. Although the rationale as to why was drawing some pause from me, with a lot of comparisons being made to his more purposeful obfuscation on his 2000s albums, and where I've been on the record saying that's not exactly my favorite era of Aesop Rock compared to when he turned a corner to more accessible, dare I even say vulnerable storytelling, where the weirdness was going to fall out regardless, it's just how he writes. But the other reality about being a fan of Aesop Rock is that it kinda hacks your brain a bit. If you've got the vocabulary or catching up of his reference points, the albums get remarkably straightforward where he's going, with the wild wordplay is more of garnish, and yet even then, from the first couple listens of Black Hole Superette, I knew this was gonna get kinda tricky, because the surrealism had been turned up a notch. Aesop Rock has described this project as around the invisible forces that shape our psyche, the half-heard, the barely understood, the dreamlike everyday mundanity that slips into the ineffable the more you think about it. But immediately, like integrated tech solutions wasn't really about technological dystopia so much as the integrations between humans that transcend tech, I understood that said invisible forces are less of the supernatural and more of, well, our environment, the day-to-day, where we don't often conceptualize how deeply it might shape us. Where not only when you notice it, you can't stop noticing it, but also that you gotta find a way to live. Thus, the weird almost becomes routine. But where that last album was one of the most optimistic projects in Aesop Rock's catalog, he's intensely aware of some of the darker edges that have once again crept up around him, and how some of those normalizing forces in community can be lightly toxic in their own right. The paradox of being more livable, but losing what could make them unique or special. Like how the community described on Checkers tends to paper over tragedy even as a dark end is framed as inevitable, mirrored by the bruising bass around some eerie synth warbles. Or how Send Help is loaded up with the braggadocious flair, but has never quite healed the deeper wounds, where the calls for help are broadly ignored despite them being what should be done, as the guitars quiver and his voice just hangs in the mix. I love the metaphor of paradise getting paved into parking lots, ideal as Aesop Rock is a skateboarder, but it's also done in the framing of industry and normalization. It's not so simple. You can also tell that as an acclaimed, long-running underground rapper who already has a strange, kind of precarious routine, that Aesop Rock feels caught in the middle of it all, acutely aware of every single contradiction, where he wonders how much of this is ever sticking. Like on The Constant Danger of So Be It with Open Mike Eagle. Side note, would have really liked Open Mike Eagle to have a verse beyond the hook. The cycling lo-fi drums against that great guitar line would have been just perfect for him. Or the exasperated swaggering twang of Bird School, where expanding off of pigeonometry on integrated tech solutions and its bird-like art references, he's trying to showcase the magic of nature mirrored in the slight magic of performing for the audience, whether resonance can be found without, burnout or just retreat, or how Charlie Horse pairs him with Homeboy, Sandman, and Lupe Fiasco in killer rap exercises against the swaggering guitars and the bass knock, but emphasis on exercise, with the song is named for when your muscle seizes up, and it doesn't quite give you as much as you were hoping, and all three rappers know that as they've gotten older. So routine in its own way becomes the killer of a certain resonance in art, where the emotional response is something you can't quite contextualize is where transcendence might be, which translates to my favorite and most normal song told on the album in John Something, with the snaps and the jazzy pianos, where he talks about a college art lecture derailed derailed by the visiting artist wanting to talk about a boxing documentary when we were kings instead, and Aesop Rock is so struck by his passion that he goes to go see the documentary and forever cites this lecture and this artist as something that changed him, and he can't even remember the artist's name. Art transcends like that. So it becomes obvious why he is drawn to that misty sense of creeping danger, comfort in discomfort nailed in the superb Armand Hammer collab 1010 Wins, referencing the old New York radio station as the guitar warbles stalk against the weirder synthesizers, or the presence of animals that he can't quite understand, like on movie nights talking about his pets, where the juxtaposition of quantified domestication and wildness echoes again as the clattering lo-fi drums rattle around the playful organ line, or how the cymbal-heavy stutter of Snail Zero tells of a snail infestation in his house that he comes to embrace in a truly hilarious moment. And then Black Plums nails this moment of sweet sensory experience with the rich synth chords amidst the knowledge that not only is death encroaching, but how might he be remembered? And then those who would quantify or commodify any transcendence that he might have found in that moment. If anything, he revels most in the unquantifiable, the euphoric, the more distinctly human or weird, which gives the songs with pure show-off flair amidst the comforting, if stagnating, mundane, like EWR Terminal A Gate 20 with a string of knotted sci-fi references, or all the cold lines on Ice Sold Here with a cadence that funnily enough reminds me of Open Mike Eagle with so much careening flair. It gives these songs even more vibrancy, or, you know the right word? Magic. But the project really comes together on the closer, Unbelievable Shenanigans, where amidst the subtle buzzing beauty, it begins with the story of his old hamster as a child escaping twice, the second time to die in the dark, where as much as he can appreciate that normative experience in comparison with the wild risks that come with chasing that sort of escape, he's gonna seek the latter because that is what makes life worth living. He'll be more cautious as he's gotten older, and he knows better than anyone that it doesn't fit a plan or stability, and he's gotten a little bit more comfortable with that, but come on, be real. And even then, you can lose your audience along the way. That matters too as a performer, but with the world the way it is, how could you do anything else? And of course, there are a couple niggling factors that have persisted with Aesop Rock in structure and production. His vocals can often feel a little sharply compressed. Steel Wool springs to mind here, as does the opener. And while it makes for the album to meander given the themes, the extended length feels like something we're just never getting away from, a relic from the 2000s. Thus, as a whole, you know, a bit of a quandary, because Aesop Rock is great. This absolutely continues that trajectory. A little darker than Integrated Tech Solutions, maybe a bit more indebted to themes and ideas we're familiar with from Aesop Rock, but he's delivering them unlike anyone else. And while I personally wish there was more vulnerable personal storytelling and narrative, the actual bangers and hooks here, they're top quality, maybe even some of his best. So again, it's excellent. Among some of the best hip-hop you're going to hear this year, and with more lead time, I expect it's only going to further grow on me. His albums tend to do that. But until we get there, well, you know, if you're going out, I think I'll take a bag of spicy all-dressed Ruffles, a Diet Dr. Pepper, and hope you can find the transcendent magic between the cracks of our worlds that you can't quite explain. You may have to put the last one on credit. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. Yeah, this album was a lot of fun. It's excellent. I'm genuinely curious where some of y'all might think this falls in his catalog. I go back and forth whether or not I like Integrated Tech Solutions more or The Impossible Kid more. I still think my favorite from his is Labor Days, but again, go back and forth. Debate that down in the comments below. He's certainly got the catalog in which to have that debate. Beyond that though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you all want to help support the channel, argue with me on my Discord, when the schedule opens July, get over there. The link to my Patreon and YouTube memberships is right here. Once again, don't feel obligated, tough times, but the option is available. Till then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.